Hey, it's Gigi. Welcome to Musicians Can Thrive. So today we're going to talk about burnout and finding creativity after that. There is a recurring theme in my life where I push myself to the point of absolute, complete, exhausted burnout. And part of that is my own fault because I'm a workaholic who has a hard time learning where my limits are. But one of the things that has started to basically come up as a recurring theme throughout all these times of getting burned out and then recovering and then, burning myself out again is there are ways that you can, one, recover faster from burnout, and two, there are different kinds of burnout.
One of the things as creators we think about is how do we sustain for a long period of time because people may get bored. There's many different ways to talk about this. First of all, I once took a 2.5-year gap of producing any content. 2.5 years. So for 5 years I did wine content from 2006 to 2011, and then in 2014 I started the Ask Gary Vee show. That's a long gap. So I think a lot of times we beat each other up. You beat yourself up for not producing content. I'm potentially one of the most prolific content creators of the last decade, and I once took almost 3 years where I made almost no content. So I hope that gives everyone a sense of relief that if you have a bad week or even a bad month, it doesn't mean the end of your content career. That's number one. Number two, notice what I came back and did. After 5 years of doing wine content and not doing content for 3 years, the content pillar that I decided to do was a Q&A format. Why did I do that? Because I needed the audience to be a contributor to the content creation. I think one of the great mistakes that a lot of people make is they don't incorporate their audience as a potential starter to creative. It is an amazing training wheels, setup, chess move, putting you halfway home, incorporating your audience to being a starting point to more content is something more people need to do.
So that clip that you just heard that started this episode is Gary Vee himself basically admitting that he got burned out and he took an extended break from making content. And whether or not you use the word burnout specifically in every instance, there's kind of a taboo or a anxiety associated around taking a break from publishing content. We are so accustomed to this fast pace of social media and having that be like the standard for publishing. And at this point, I think we can all agree that it's a little exhausting sometimes. We are creators, we are artists, but we also need time to just sit around and do nothing. That is an important piece that feeds our creativity. So for those of you who don't know Gary Vee or are not familiar with who he is not a musician, but he is a widely respected businessman, and particularly when it comes to marketing and creating content and basically finding ways to build something for yourself that doesn't involve going to college or getting a job at a big corporation. And so on the small scale sort of startup side of things, that's very aligned with what it takes to be a successful independent musician at this point in time. So that's part of why I brought him into this conversation, because I see a lot of connections between the startup realm and what musicians basically go through in a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. I'm not going to focus on the day-to-day here because at some point, yes, the day-to-day experience is important, but there have been several recurring themes that have come up as I've talked to various musicians off the official podcast set or an official interview context. And there have also been some artists that I have come into contact with in Austin who I have not yet interviewed, who have basically become an encouraging sort of affirmation for me that my own burnout that I experienced in 2021 when I ended season 3 and took a whole year break before I launched season 4 last month. And I'm just going to share that with you today. So hopefully it can help you recognize that you're also not as alone as you think you are in your own challenges with publishing and consistency and what that means. So we have a clip from a really interesting rapper in Austin. His name is Raw, and he has a YouTube channel. He is active on Instagram. I'm probably missing a few things, but he's basically consistently publishing on multiple channels and also making his art as a rapper. And so he has some interesting things that he points out in his experience of burnout.
I'm just super thankful. With that being said, y'all know I'm real heavy on mental health, and I always start my videos off with I hope you're doing good and staying safe. And I really mean that. And it comes from a genuine place because I know how it feels to not be good. You know what I mean? Sincerely. And lately, I just been on and off fighting burnout, you know what I mean? And I'm sure y'all could tell, I record all my videos in bulk most of the time, so even when I'm not physically, recording and doing the whole process, I'm always up so I can take a little break. But I think it just stacked up, so I burnt out. And this last burnout was just pretty bad. It was just a weird time for me, and I just wanted to hop on here and not only talk about my goals for 2022, but just talk about the direction of the channel, you know what I mean, for those that is tuned in. You know what I mean? I ain't forgot about y'all, man. I know I ain't been interacting like I do. I know I ain't been posting like I normally do, but you know what I mean? It's just, I really needed this break. I've been grinding for like 10 years when it comes to the content, to the music, and I think I just needed a break. So with that being said, I want to make sure that y'all know, like, it's all love. Regardless if everybody that I rock with, man, just know whether I'm here every day or I'm taking a break, like, it's all love all the time. But as far as the content, there's some new things this year that I want to get started and roll out. And then this year, I just want to settle down, focus on creating content, focus on building my team, and not burning out trying to do it all no more, bruh. Because it's time. It's a lot of dope people. Big shout out to V. Big shout out to Kia. Big shout out to Sibo. Big shout out to my sister. Big shout out to my mom. Like, it's a whole lot of people that are going to be a part of this mission, instead of me being a one-man band. So stay tuned on that. And then that way I could just focus on making the dopest content possible. And doing 20 things at once, you know what I mean? It's chaotic, you know what I mean? And it just limits your growth. So not growth, but it's like taxing. And like, I'm starting to realize, like, bro, like, it's time, man. Like, it's time, so.
The other big thing about Raw's video that caught my attention was he describes how he's going to try different things, different kinds of art to make, different kinds of work projects. He's not retreating from his burnout and just focusing on rest and recovery. And I think that is one of the most powerful things I personally learned in my own experience of being burned out and recovering from that. Because in the self-care space, it's really easy to find content that focuses on make sure you're getting plenty of sleep, make sure you're eating right, make sure your mental health is good. And what doesn't get talked about often enough is that sometimes when you're burned out, you actually need to go and do things. But you need to do different things than what you've been doing that led to the burnout in the first place. So in my case, the reason why hosting shows in the past 12 months and attending more shows and just getting out of my house, being more social, having more chances to run into artists and my friends and other people in the music industry and other creative spaces just out and around Austin or any other city I'm in at that moment in time, is those things are energizing. And as someone who is a workaholic and really spends a lot of time focusing on being productive, I quickly fell into this habit of isolating myself, staying home, working, grinding out, just editing by myself in front of my computer. And there's a time and a place for that. Sometimes you really need to do a retreat into the cave and get some shit done. But if you're burned out, it's time to reevaluate and try something different. And that's why Ra's video particularly resonated with me, because he was acknowledging the burnout. He was saying, yeah, something has to change. And he was also basically sharing with his audience and at the same time giving himself permission to go and try new things. And that is really admirable. I'm glad he did it, both one, because he helped me feel less alone in my own experience, and two, it's really fantastic for anyone in his audience who is also an artist or a creator and maybe also feeling that pressure of the constant need to publish or create and then announce that you're working on something, to just take a step back and just try some new things. So why does burnout matter so much to me? Why is this a thing that I'm spending a whole episode talking about? Well, if you've been listening to Musicians Can Thrive for a while, we're 4 seasons in, 4 years in, can't believe it, so pleased. You'll know that building something sustainable is really important to me. It's something that I am exploring in nearly every conversation I have as part of an official interview with Musicians Can Thrive. Eventually there's going to be some sort of question about how do you keep it going for the long term? It's a valid question. It's an important question. It is one that I personally am trying to find the answer to, and that I know a lot of other artists also want to be able to have confidence that if they build a career in music, they can keep it going. They can build a life, not just have a sort of flame up moment where something gets really big and successful, and then a flame out moment where either they burn out or something else happens and the music career kind of fizzles out. So that's why I am interested in exploring things like burnout and finding your creativity again after that, and coming back with a sense of renewed purpose and interest in what you're doing. One of the things that I noticed when I went through my year-long break between season 3 and season 4 of Musicians Can Thrive is I spent probably 50% to 75% of that time basically beating myself up for taking the break. Even though it's not like I was sitting on my ass doing nothing. There definitely was some of that, I'll be honest. But it was just a few days here and there out of a month. And what helped me basically move through the burnout was I started trying different things. All that time that had been well spent on doing things like hosting 2 shows, one in July 2021, one during South by Southwest in March of 2022. I did a lot of experiments with Instagram and making different kinds of content, trying to understand what people resonate with and what they don't. I also spent a lot of time diving back into my own music and figuring out what kind of songwriter I want to be, and whether that involves releasing music that I record myself, or if I just write songs and sell them to other people for them to record. So all of these things are coming together to basically bring us to a point where I spent a lot of time feeling burned out and also feeling super guilty about my burnout. And that doesn't help anything. If anything, I probably spent a longer period of time feeling stuck in that state of burnout because I spent so much time not actually resting and living life and being present in the moment at the shows I went to, at the shows I hosted, in the conversations I've had with all the artists I've met over this period of a year. If I had been more present with those things and spent less time basically giving myself shit, saying, you're not publishing enough, you're not doing enough, what's wrong with you, basically, I probably would have recovered from that burnout faster. And recently, I have been working on a song that I'm going to record and release very soon. It's going to be my debut single. And as I have started to basically come back into that role of being an artist, a musician, there was a day the other week where I was sitting on my couch thinking about all the things I was trying to plan and coordinate to make happen to release a single this year. And it just hit me all over again, like it had hit me so many times before in years past, where it was just like, damn, I would love it if a record label could basically just swoop in and save the day. Which kind of sucks, because there are so many different ways for independent musicians to build really amazing careers for themselves. And I have put so much time into exploring and sharing all of those ways with you guys. And so when I had that feeling hit me again of going, damn, I wish a record label would just come and help me out and basically fix this problem for me, it made me pause. It made me go, okay, so what's up with that? Because it's not really what I want. I don't really want to give up control. I don't really want to be dependent on a record label basically making it for me. So, circling back to burnout and how we can use working on different kinds of creative projects or working on different kinds of projects in general, creative or otherwise, as a way to pull ourselves out of that burnout. I think part of why we all have these moments of thinking, man, I just wish a record label would come and help me and basically solve the how do I make it problem for me. The reason why that's so appealing is what we're really wanting is help from a team that we trust, which totally makes sense. And one of the things that, in my experience, has created a lot of my burnout is I don't have the help I need, partly because I am 4 years into this podcast, still just one person, doing this as a sort of side project in the midst of my day job and, general life responsibilities with family and stuff, and then also trying to figure out my own music and creative projects. So it's not like I have a team right now helping me make all this content, but one of the things that basically I've noticed helps differentiate artists who are growing really exponentially higher than other artists that are still kind of trying to figure it out and get, you might have several thousand followers on Instagram or TikTok, but to have a packed show every time you play, that's a different threshold to hit. And so one of the things I've noticed that sort of differentiates between those two artists is the ones who are growing and who do have a packed show consistently. They've figured out what their team looks like. And maybe it's just one person, but that one person makes a critical difference. So, circling back to Gary Vee, when he took that extended break from making his content and he came back to it, he had a team. He had the whole VaynerMedia, basically, resource pool to draw from. And that's helped him produce content and ship content at a frequency and a consistency level that most of us, if we're just doing it by ourselves, aren't going to be able to hit. So hopefully that extra context basically can reassure you that whatever you're doing, even if it doesn't feel like even if it feels like it's not enough, consistency over the long term is going to look different than what people say consistency in the short term should be. So I myself am going to stop stressing out about publishing on a weekly basis, because at the end of the day, if I'm trying to keep doing this for 10 years, 20 years, whatever, publishing every month, every few months, over that longer period of time adds up in ways that publishing every week also adds up. But in the long run, if you miss a week or two, it actually doesn't matter that much. what matters more is you taking the time to give yourself a break and rest and recharge so that you don't get burned out and go, fuck this, I'm done. So yeah, this is episode 1 of season 4. This is what I got for you guys. And I apologize if there's background noise. I'm in the Denver airport right now, actually on my way back home to Montana. I'm going to co-host, well, so I'm not co-hosting it officially. I'm just going to help run another show. One of my day job clients, actually, they are a luggage company and they really love live music, and people in Montana really love live music. And so they're hosting a 2-day festival, and they built this whole event salon next to their retail store. And so I'm going to go help them make that happen. And I did the email marketing to promote the show a couple weeks before. So I'm excited. And in the meantime, I have some outro scripts somewhere. But basically, it's something along the lines of there are techniques and strategies and routines that work best for different people. And so what I would encourage you to consider as you leave today is, what team do you have already? And what's missing from that? And how can you develop that support network to help you feel less alone and less like you have to do everything yourself? Because that, in turn, can help you not get burned out as much. Peace, guys.